Here's some information to help you record your speeches with success. First of all, we need to think about setting up the recording space that you're going to use. First of all, you need to select a space that is large enough for you and your audience of at least 5 adults. You have to think about how you're going to position the camera so that all of you can be seen. You need to be standing and need to be shown from at least the knees up to the top of your head. And then we'd like to see the faces of your audience members, at least from the side, so that they're visible as well. This means that you'll have to probably record from the side view. But make sure that first and foremost, your face and your body from the knees up will be visible. You have to make sure that there's adequate lighting in the room. If you stand in front of an open window that isn't covered, it'll completely black out your image. So make sure that any significant source of light is not directly behind you. Then you have to think about, will the camera be stationary, or will you have someone holding this camera securely? Your image needs to be steady in order to be accepted. And then you need to think about, what will you use for a podium? All of your speeches will require that you have notes and that you have probably some objects that you're going to show as well. And so you need to have a place to set these things. It is never acceptable to hold your note cards while you're presenting a speech. To do so means that you cannot gesture effectively. So you always have to have your note cards sitting on something. Now, what might that be? Well, it might be that you could use a countertop if you're recording in your kitchen area. It might mean that you could choose to use a significant size plant stand. Ideally, if you had a music stand, that makes a great podium. However, not all of us have those available to us. So think about what you have, perhaps an ironing board with a tablecloth over it. What do you have that can double as your speaking podium? And remember, your podium should not hide you from the knees up. Now you also need to think ahead to the issue of children and animals. There was a comedian by the name of W.C. Fields who often said that you never should work with children or animals because they tend to upstage you quite a bit. So you wouldn't bring, your animals or your kids into the classroom, so you need to make arrangements for them prior to your recording. It's fine to ask, a new mother to be one of your audience members, but if that new mother has to have her baby in her arms, then she probably isn't a good choice for an audience member. Be sure you check your volume. In order for me to be able to successfully grade your speeches, I have to be able to hear them. And so do an audio check before you record your actual speech. That will save you from having to totally re-record it. Ask your audience members to be sure to silence their cell phones. And if you still have a landline, make sure that that phone is silenced as well. Now, one of the challenges that you face taking this course online is that you have to find your audience of 5 adults. And an adult is considered someone 18 or older. Probably the most reliable source for your audience members will be friends and family because they care about you and they're not likely to bail out on you at the very last minute. You might also consider coworkers. And in the past, in many classes, my students have formed a cohort group where 6 people get together so that while one person is speaking, the other 5 are the audience members for the speaker. And they just simply all record their speeches at the same meeting time. Forming a cohort group is pretty easy if you use the email device in Blackboard so that you can send out an email to all class members and see if you can find a way that you can, have a common schedule to record your speeches. Now, if you are really hard-pressed, this may sound unusual, but I have had people successfully present their speeches in the gathering room at a nursing home. What you would need to do would be to contact the activity director and explain that you're a student in a speech class who needs a live audience, and then set up a time that you can record your speeches for them. Actually, recording at a nursing home is a welcome diversion for many of the residents. Now, here's the thing that you need to consider. If you get to the day of your recording and you only have 3 audience members, that means you're missing 2 of the required. For that reason, I always encourage you to invite at least 8 people who are committed to attending the recording of your speech. That way, you won't have to suffer the penalty of a missing audience member. Always invite more people than you need. Remember that 10% of your speech value for each audience member missing is a pretty hefty penalty. So even if you delivered an A+ speech and you were missing 1 audience member, that would take your potential grade down to 90% at the best. So be sure that you have those audience members there, and make sure that those audience members are adults over the age of 18. Now, before you start to record your speech, each one of your audience members needs to look at the camera and make a self-introduction. They can simply present their name, and they might want to include their relationship to you. Have you considered how I'm going to be able to see your visual aids and all of your classmates out here who will be viewing your speeches? It might be that your camera person will need to zoom in on your visual aids for us to see them, or simply walk right up to the visual aid to get a picture of it so that those of us in your audience out here can also see the visual aids that you're using. It is not acceptable to simply post your visual aids for us to try to look through later. They need to be able to be seen during the course of your speech. I also would like to mention that your camera person, if you decide to use one, if over the age of 18, is also able to count as one of your audience members. Be sure that you watch your speech before your audience leaves. In fact, I always suggest recording a brief, maybe just the introduction of your speech, and then watching it, because you need to check for video. Can I see you? Can your audience members be seen? And you need to check for audio to make sure that the volume is such that I can easily hear you.